Well, hello and welcome back to the Social Media Magic Podcast. My name is Brittany Verlenich. I'm a content strategist, social media manager, and obviously the host of the show. I am also a major marketing nerd, which I know that if you've been here for a while, you already know that. But the reason that I'm a marketing nerd and the reason that we talk about these things is because I really do believe that we cannot just rely on a marketplace or honestly any one company for our earnings. I really do believe that you should be diversifying your income, diversifying your traffic. So obviously it makes a lot of sense to have my guest I have on today, Andrew George. Welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm really excited to be here.
Yay, I'm excited to have you. We all love the Scottish accent. I feel like that's just a bonus for us. So thank you for that. Andrew, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about what you're about and what you do for makers and creators.
I initially started off with my own handmade business, and eventually, through growing that and kind of being in other groups of makers, kind of learning how to market, because we all kind of went into it with this, we just get to make our products, but that's like 10% of the work, and the other 90% is actually trying to sell them. Kind of seeing how people struggled, and a lot of the people out there trying to teach them how to market. Like, I didn't particularly agree with what they did. A lot of them had gotten rid of their actual main business and weren't really like in the trenches anymore. And I'd kind of forgotten what it was like to be a maker and sell and have the struggles of doing that. So I thought, well, I want to still have that on my business, but I want to also help other people because maybe not the biggest seller on Etsy, but I'd had some success. I saw a lot of people kind of struggle with the tech side and stuff, and that was where I was really good. Like tech, that's totally a strong part of mine. And email list building and all that kind of stuff is where I can really nerd out. So started helping other people to grow their lists and start making sales, whether that's on Etsy or whatever they are, or if they want to go off platform and start being on places like Shopify. What I'm doing now that I know we're going to talk about is gathering everyone who has the whole rest of the expertise together so that we can all share.
I love that. And I also was nodding my head in case you're listening to when you said who are interested maybe in building their own platform, their own site or Shopify store. That is something that many of my listeners can relate to. I have sellers in my audience, my community who have had some success, which is great. And they've had success on these marketplaces, right? Like they've been on Etsy for a while, they've been on Teachers Pay Teachers for a while, and they're interested in not paying those commissions anymore, right? Or they're starting to see some algorithmic changes for their traffic and they're thinking, what can I do to maintain something? I mean, don't we all want consistent sales, right? Like that's what we all want. We want it to be consistent. We want it to trend up always, but they're looking for ways to take more control back over their traffic and how things are ran. So a lot of sellers I know, like that's been such a big topic in our community specifically, at least in TPT world, has been like moving your resources to your website. How do you open up a Shopify store? People are exploring Pinterest again. I feel like Pinterest was like really hot back in 2018. And then the last couple of years, they had an identity crisis. They didn't know if they were social media. They didn't know if they were a search engine. So a lot of us had just given up, myself included. I didn't really spend much time on it anymore. Jury's still out. It sounds like maybe it's coming back. I also want to give a recap, just kind of like state of the marketing address really quickly. Google has changed a lot in the past year as well. And I know Google used to be the super reliable thing. I see you nodding your head. With all the different core updates and things, people are even wondering, like, can I rely on Google to bring me traffic to my site? Do I need to look at other things? I've seen in the blogging world that bloggers that have printables, they're looking at things like Flipboard and Google Discover. So I think that your summit is very timely. I think that your subject is very timely and important. And so I'm really excited to dive in. Okay, so you said that you were a maker. First, I would just love to know, what did you make or what do you make?
Yeah, that was one of the things that was really important to me. Like when people say they're struggling on Etsy or like sales are slow, I'm like, okay, if I'm on there, I can get a better feel of things. So I was really keen on always keeping my handmade business. I do a lot of personalized stuff. It's mainly like machine embroidery, but I do use some kind of other techniques in there as well. Kind of doing a wide range. There's a lot of gifts, and I've worked with brands on bigger kind of orders. So it's a nice mix of stuff there.
I want to also highlight what he said, working with brands. So I'm assuming when you say working with brands, like making custom items for them, right? For their company, for their brand. Is that what you mean?
People having different things for events, or like when they're working with influencers, sometimes they'll send out set things.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I just wanted to highlight that because I think that also getting creative about how you get people in your audience or like what kind of customers you have. Like obviously if you can get bulk orders in our world, in the teacher world, that would maybe be working directly with schools, working with districts, selling multiple licenses for things. Because a lot of our stuff is intellectual property based, right? So you're working with printables and digital products. That's really cool that you said that because I feel like that will spark something in somebody that's maybe like, oh, okay, so maybe I should be taking more control over my traffic and where my products are hosted, if for no other reason than opening yourself up to having more of those options, right? Because it's hard when you're on a marketplace. Now, I do have a quick question about Etsy, because Etsy, I'm learning more about it, but it's not the first platform. Like I'm much more familiar with TBT. Do you get email addresses directly from Etsy?
Etsy
Customers.
is like super strict
Okay.
on not contacting their customers.
Of course, right? They don't want us taking them off the platform, is what I'm guessing. Yeah. Okay. I thought so.
Yeah, I have sneaky tricks to try and get those people on my list.
Oh,
That's
okay.
everything.
Well, I have some Etsy sellers in my audience, and I've been wanting to learn more because that way I can better equip them, because I have some Etsy sellers that I do their social media stuff. So why don't we start with that? I want to hear some sneaky tricks. I feel like some people who are hearing that might be also interested in maybe even adding to Etsy in addition to what they're doing. So first, let's start with that. How do we get folks' email addresses from a marketplace? Now, TPT is also very strict on that. So I'm curious to see, what are some of the Etsy tricks?
Yeah, it's very platform specific. Like the things that Etsy will let you do in their rules are not what Amazon will, because I have some like Amazon handmade people. So you need to like make sure you're within the platform rules. Totally within the rules of Etsy. You can have a link to join your email list in like your bio. I have it at the beginning of every product description. I'll have like, want 20% off this item? Go to this site and get it. I will have the very last photo, because you get 10 photos on Etsy, is always a link to my email list. And you can also use order inserts in all of your orders and say, like, want 20% off your next order, scan the QR code, send to my email list. And I'll also, one thing I tried that worked really well, do I have any? I keep running out. No, I don't have any left. But is I'll put in like, here's a bonus card, give this one to a friend, and I'll have like, a specific link so I can track how many people are coming in on their own to place an order, how many people have like given it to a friend, and then they go on to join the list and place an order. Because I like that kind of tracking and seeing all these things is something I really enjoy. So there's a bunch of like little tricks like that. Like the vast majority of people who order from me on Etsy will join my list and then place the order to get the money off.
And we can do a slight version of that. It's one of the rules we have for Teachers Pay Teachers. That might even be a great topic in the future of you teaming up with people who teach how to sell on TPT, because I feel like you have a market there too. When you sell a TPT digital product, obviously you can't say in the product listing, like, come to my website and buy it here. You can't do that. You're not supposed to drive traffic off the site. But what you can do in the downloadable is you can have a QR code for your phone that you scan, because usually they're going to open it on a computer, but you can use your phone, scan it. You can have a link to your opt-in, so you can collect their email address that way. So there are ways that you can do this with digital downloadable things too. Even the coupon code thing, that's so smart. So we can't really do coupon codes on Teachers Pay Teachers. However, if you want to incentivize them to get onto your newsletter or your email list, you can then forward them to your Shopify store or to your website. And there you can use coupon codes, right? So I love what you're saying about the workarounds. Okay, so I would love to hear, what are some other ways that you're growing traffic right now? Or what do you usually recommend? Because I know you're mentioning that, like, when you hear Etsy sellers and other makers, creators say that their traffic and sales are down, your heart goes out to them. Like, I can tell that you really care. So what are some tips that you have for people who are experiencing that right now, if they're not getting the traffic on the marketplaces that they were really wanting and looking for?
Yeah, I think the big thing is to never rely on a single platform for traffic, especially not a platform that you don't own. Etsy these days, they will randomly shut shops down. Like, there's a big problem with that. Even if you're following all the rules and doing everything completely right, you never know whether tomorrow your shop is going to be completely gone. That's a major reason to have like some sort of backup. They're going to be paying things like lower fees. It's a real big one. And to make sure that you are always building an email list from day one, that's a really important thing. And even if you're like, okay, I'm not ready to go and build a Shopify store, I know that, like, when I first started Etsy, how much Shopify was at the time, I was like, ooh, I'm not sure I can swing this yet. But I could start the free MailChimp account I had at the time. Then once I was ready to get on Shopify, that's when I can say, okay, now I want you to go and shop on my own site. Even if you aren't ready to have your own platform, just kind of having that backup. And then if Etsy disappears or shuts down your shop, you can say, oh, well, I'm here, and you haven't lost that customers who are looking for you. That's a really big thing I'm really passionate about.
Yes. And I feel like you just really walked through like the journey and all the phases of being a TPT seller. So the first one is just even opening your store. And there's so much trepidation and stress with that, because With Etsy, I know you pay per listing, right? On TPT, you have a minimum that you have to pay for like a basic seller account. And then there's a premium seller account, which is like $60 a year, 60 USD. 60 USD in the grand scheme of things is not a lot of money, right? There's so many more expenses now that I have that are more than that. But when you're first starting out, right? Like when you have your full-time job and this is a side hustle and you're not fully committed yet because you're like, I don't know if I'm going to do anything with this, right? I might not make any money. And so $60 in the negatives, that is a lot, right? And then you commit to that. And then the first process is really learning product creation. How do I create really good products that make people want to buy them and keep coming back? And then you make good products. That's a whole skill, right? I'm not going to make it sound like it's fast, but you do that. And then you're like, oh, I have to market the products. Okay. So I'm going to get really good at SEO and titles and listings and thumbnails, very similar to Etsy, right? You have these very similar like transferable skills. So you get really good at that. And then you start seeing some results. Now you have some sales and you're like, okay, great. Probably been building my email list or thinking about it. Now I'm going to start building it. Hopefully, if you build from day one, if you are in the new stages, I feel like we all who have an email list wish you would have started sooner. Like everybody I talk to says that. So if you've been building it in the background, even if you haven't been emailing them yet, you get to a point where you're like, okay, I've got the basics down. Now I'm going to start sending emails out when I have new products or for promotions on existing products, all that. But then you get to a point where you're like, okay, wait a minute. I got on the marketplace because they were sending me people. They were sending me traffic. I wasn't having to go and make it myself. But now you're paying for your email list because it would have grown by this time. So you're paying a little bit more for it. Maybe you're even hiring help and you're like, wait a minute. Well, if I'm sending them the traffic and they're taking this commission cut for me and I'm paying this membership, like maybe I should just have them on my own site. Maybe I should just have them on my own Shopify store because then I can have more control and I can do coupon codes and I can reward loyalty and all that stuff. The reason I wanted to highlight what you just said again is like the TPT seller journey is because I think it's really important whenever you're hearing advice or tips, you have to filter it through where you are in business. You have to think like, okay, even if I'm just still in the like testing stage of like, I'm still figuring out like what my niche is or like what kind of products I want to make, I really do think you should have an email list because you also have a personal brand, whether you want to lead into that or not. There are people who are interested in not just the products, but the seller. And like you might decide later to change niches or something. But if you have that person's information and you have been building a relationship with that person, then if you do switch to another platform or you do open up another marketplace, or God forbid, your store gets shut down, because that happens on Teachers Pay Teachers as well and on Amazon, then they can move with you. I just totally agree with what you're saying. So you mentioned email. Is there anything else that you're doing to drive them to your store, or how are you building traffic? Take us maybe through like your overall strategy and what you're sharing with newbies. And I know that also we're going to get into specific strategies at the Profitable Maker Summit. So we'll talk about that in a second, but maybe just give us a bird's eye view of your whole strategy and how you're getting people on your email list and retaining them there.
Yeah. So when I talk about traffic, and I'm going to go into detail about this at the summit, but I kind of break things down into 4 buckets, and that's the days I themed. There's social media, there's relationship traffic, there's paid traffic, and there's SEO. And I recommend people eventually work their way into having something from each, but definitely don't start trying to do all 4 at the same time. For me, I've picked my favorites and where I know my customers are, where I would enjoy creating content. For social, Instagram is where I like to be, and that's where I gain the most followers. So that was really a simple decision. Search, I really focus on SEO on my site, like making sure every page is optimized, try to get Google traffic that way. Relationship, I have kind of loyalty scheme on the site so that people refer other people, get points and things, and they can do their stuff to earn them. Paid is the one where I haven't really dipped my toes in yet. I've done some ads. I don't really do them around Christmas because I know I can profit on them enough, because there's not a ton of control when it comes to ads, and that's not really what I'm control freak in everything I do. I know I can make a decent return on ad spend if I do ads around Christmas when I get a ton of orders. The rest of the time I just leave that off. So pay is kind of one that I'm sure I'll get to eventually, but I haven't. And that's why I wanted to bring in actual experts to the summit. So I'm not myself going trying to talk about every different thing out there when I don't actually know what I'm talking about.
Well, and each of those topics is so big, right? Like I'm just thinking, okay, SEO. So we have marketplace, like on page product listing SEO, and then you have content SEO. Say you're selling on your website and you use like a WooCommerce shop. You might have a blog post. Say your product is about fractions, like it's like a fraction worksheet. You might have a blog post that says something like, here are 5 unique ways to teach fractions. It's informational. And then it leads to the product then saying, hey, if you want something that does all this for you, you don't have to plan it. here's a link to my product or product embedded in the blog post. So you have content SEO, you have the product title SEO, you have SEO in your marketplace. So even just right there, when you say SEO, this is why I think sometimes we could do a disservice to our customers. When I see courses and things, I'm like, you have to be really specific because like, what SEO where, right? What does that mean? It's a big topic. And social media is a huge topic, right? You have all these different platforms and then there's how you use them, right? So I've seen courses for Instagram just about Reels. I talk a lot about ManyChat and how you can automate that so that you have the links sent to them. I mean, each of those is already such a big topic when we're talking about summits and things. Like, it's such a good deal when you even just think about it in that way of like, okay, you're not having to go and pay for individual courses from all these different people who have specialty in Etsy SEO and TPT SEO, right? Like, you're getting everybody in one place. So I think it's really beautiful that you have the mission, the vision of gathering people together that helps the seller more, because you will spend years trying to master all these individual skills on your own. It's just too much, honestly. It's too much. Having like little bits at a time and figuring out what am I going to work on right now and which do I have from each bucket. I agree, it's super smart. I also think if you don't have one from each bucket, then you're also vulnerable, right? Because same thing, you could have an Instagram account shut down. You could have a Google update stop sending you traffic. I really hope that people are seeing and hearing that I am not saying just have social media. I'm not saying have social media and no email list. I'm not saying have social media and no website. I think you need all of those things. I think they all work together, but social media is where they meet you. It's the door. It's the door into your world, and so they can get to know you and also see your products, because social media, if you're creative about it, you can actually showcase your products and highlight them on there, and people want to buy stuff, right? Like, I think we have like a lot of stuff in our head about sales. We want more sales, but we don't like the word sales. We're like, oh, I don't want to sell. I don't want to sell stuff. I see you're nodding your head, but people actually do want to buy stuff. I can't tell you how many reels and TikToks I've seen where a girl's wearing some like cute jeans and I see everybody saying link, 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 because they want the jeans. And I don't know why we get so in our heads about it. Maybe because we made the thing and we also kind of see it as our self-expression. So I would love tips on that too. How do you feel about sales and selling skills, and how do you think that translates into those 4 buckets that you mentioned? And are we going to talk about that at the summit?
Yeah, sales is always this big scary thing. When I started coaching people, I thought I'd be teaching them skills and like SEO and stuff, but half of it is mindset, and people just need permission. And honestly, I'm really passionate about email. I know that when people send more emails, they make more money, and I've proven it time and time again when I actually convince people to get there. But sometimes it takes me a year of telling someone that multiple times a week before they actually start to consistently send emails. Andrew, I actually sent an email this week and look at how much money I made. So sales kind of seems scary and people don't want to do it, but they get much better results when they do. And it's like on every platform. Instagram, a ton of people I'll see like look at their Instagram accounts. It's like, okay, that's some great quotes and all these things you have there, but I can't tell what you sell. Where's the jewelry? Where's the soap? Like, I can't actually tell what you do. That's what I came here for. So being confident about your products. I know there's a lot of different reasons not to be confident. It's mostly getting over that. The products aren't perfect, or like the caption isn't perfect, or I really need to update my site. Like, I heard all the excuses. And I know people are scared of that rejection when they put themselves out there. You're going to get 9 no's, but there's the one yes, and it's one more yes than if you'd done nothing. Kind of
Oh,
get
I love that. I love that quote. It's one more yes, and if you did nothing, right? Like, isn't that the truth? You have nothing to lose. If you're not making any money, or if you're not making enough money, then you have nothing to lose because you're already not making. I have to tell myself that sometimes too, because I can get in my head about things. I also want to say that where and how you do sales makes a difference too. I'm a service provider, so how I sell and show up is a little bit different than someone who has a physical product or a digital product. But if you have something more tangible, you actually have a gift, because if you are selling soap, or if you're selling like tumblers or t-shirts or even printable products like that you can print out, because you can style the set. You can have some scissors next to it, crayons, make it look more like real, like in action, like in the classroom. You kind of have a gift there. Like, here's what you're going to get. Here's the transformation you can get from using this product. And transformation, I think that freaks people out, but what's going to be the end result, right? You could think about it like that. What's the end result that they want? Here's how it can help you get that. If you want that, here it is. I feel like you can be a little more blunt, also still being creative to get them to the post. But yeah, I just think you have such a gift, and I don't think you have to be as much in your head, because you don't even have to show your face. I would also love to know, because you said your Instagram first. Obviously, this is a social media podcast. So I would love to know, what do you do on Instagram to sell products? What are some things that have worked really well for you? Or maybe what are you trying right now?
I need to start doing that more. And I'm probably guilty of not sharing products enough there. But the thing that made the biggest difference there that I wasn't doing and that I make sure other people do is always having a call to action. Once I add that in, people do join my email list. People do go over to my site and buy. People will comment whatever we're told in the comments. You need to tell people what to do. ManyChat, I've started using that for the summit as well on the other Instagram account. It's slightly easier. It's one less step than having to go to your profile, click link in bio and all that stuff. Just making it as easy as possible for the customer. Don't make them have to go on this hunt for a link or figure out what they need to do, or just being able to go, okay, comment the word this to buy this. Like being really kind of blunt with your customers.
Clear and concise for calls to action is the best. If you watch my session at his summit, you're going to see the whole process for that. I also have a episode, if you haven't listened to it already, I think it's episode 48 is the comment to customer strategy, where I walk you through exactly how to do that. What do you say in the post? How do you clarify that call to action? What do you do in the comment and message? And I will say it is time consuming at first, right? Because you're building a whole new skill. Like not only are you learning about copywriting and creative, and also Instagram itself. If you are at a place where maybe you want to use Instagram, but you can't afford ManyChat yet, there is a free version. It's a little limited. But if you're like, I don't want to try that yet, I'm not ready for that yet, you can still use the same strategy. It's just going to take you more time because you're going to go and do it individually. But I did that, and I was also a social media manager before ManyChat. Like, oh my gosh, ManyChat was a godsend. And we talk about money savings too. So ManyChat's like $15 per account per month. So I want you to think about this for a second. I had a client's account that I was managing. She had about 30,000 followers. I spent almost 2 hours a day just replying to comments and messages. Almost the same thing of like, hey, I saw that you were interested in this person's masterclass. Here's the link to sign up. I had all these hacks. You can like save in your notes of your phone. You can also create saved replies. If there are certain things that you're selling over and over again, you can save those. I think you can save up to 20 at a time. At a point, especially if you have a whole store full of products, unless you're only selling 3 or 4 things, you're going to run out of room. And then also that's still manual labor and time that you're doing that. If you have a full-time job or even a part-time job, or you're taking care of people, you're just not going to have that time forever. I'm really a fan of the session that I have for you. So if you haven't seen that yet, definitely watch it. That'll be the 23rd to the 25th, right? Is when the summit's live. I will have the link in the episode description, whether you're watching on YouTube. I'm also going to put this in the group because we tried to stream it and it wasn't working earlier, which is all good. So we'll have the comment in there. And if for some reason you still can't find it, no worries. Send me a DM over at Brittany Berlindich. As always, happy to send that over to you. See what I just did there? Clear call to action. Send me a DM. I will send it over. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today, for your time. Any last nuggets of wisdom that you want to add about traffic and sales when it comes to selling on a marketplace like Etsy?
Yeah, I think the main thing to do is not to overcomplicate it, be distracted by shiny balls, is what we talk about with my client. The last few years, just in like everything, but especially in marketing, there was this thing's new and this new strategy and so is dead. Like you have to change everything. I've noticed it now. We're getting back to where we were before. Like blogging's back, Pinterest come back, ManyChat's back. Like they all had this bit where they died down for a little bit, but all the stuff that's always worked is kind of come back. And email, that's the one thing I will always argue. Like email isn't going anywhere. So really simplifying. And that means that no matter what changes, what social media platform you might move to, what sales platform you might move to, you always can keep in touch with your customers. My customers have moved with me to 3 different email platforms. They've always been on Etsy, to WordPress, to Squarespace, to back to WordPress, to Shopify, and they haven't really cared. If I just left them on Etsy, there's a lot of money and sales and customers on the table. I'd be leaving there. So just keeping it simple, build the email list as a priority, and all those traffic sources can drive to the email list. You don't need to overcomplicate it with a million different things.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Love everything you just shared. Thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate your time. Where can people go to find more about you and to connect with you, and maybe even to go on your email list?
Yeah, the best place is Instagram. That's where I'm active in both businesses. It's Coach Andrew George on Instagram, and that's the best place to find me. You'll get the link to join my email list. And that's the hub for everything I do. And I'm super active on stories lately, so anything you need, you can find there.
Love that. I'm a huge fan, obviously, of Instagram as a hub. I mean, there's so much you can do with your Instagram too for that. So thank you so much for coming on, Andrew.